Now it's time for tip-episodes with quick tips you should know. Techniques you can implement into your workflow right here on A Tale, oh yeah, A Tale of Two Hygienists.
Welcome everyone into this week's tip episode. We have a special guest. We have Joffree Bunleang. We're going to be talking a little bit about a new podcast, newish podcast, dental hygiene podcast that is out there for you all to listen to. Joffree, welcome to the show.
Yes, thank you for having me, Andrew.
This is exciting. I love when people get into podcasting, which I already gave you a heads up. Like, hey, after this, we are going to be like nerding out on podcasting stuff. That is the greatest thing. But tell me more about like where you guys are coming from. Tell me more about yourself, your co-host, all of that stuff.
Yes. Okay. So it is Amanda Hale and myself who are the co-host of Hygiene Elevated Conversations and Innovations podcast. What we do on the podcast is we bring on a guest almost every single time, and we just talk about whatever that guest is super into
Interesting.
as it relates to hygiene.
Is this something that like you're scouting out all of the guests and you're like, hey, that person would be really good on the show, so we want to, grab them on? Or is this something that people are applying to be on your show?
Actually, both are taking place. We initially just thought we would be reaching out to acquire guests, but people have actually contacted us saying, hey, can we get on the podcast? And we're like, of course you can. The whole mindset, Andrew, is like Amanda and I are two hygienists who are obsessed with the hygiene profession. We love what we do. And we want to just create this community to empower other hygienists. And we know a lot about a little bit, but we know that and then we know a little bit about a lot, right? But we know that there's somebody out there who's going to know a lot about something that we know a little bit about. So we want to get them on.
I hope our listeners can follow all of that.
I know.
There's a lots and littles that we all know some and little bit, but some of
yes,
it. Yeah.
Exactly. So basically, we just bring on somebody who knows more about a particular topic than we do. And then we just want to learn from them.
Buddy, that's the name of the game. Honestly, we've been doing this since 2015, and it's like the cool thing about podcasting is you're going to have a front row seat to all these amazing individuals who know so freaking much. Here's a question I have for you. Now, we're getting nerdy. This isn't actually as going as we had planned, but my question is, how do you know the questions to ask someone who is maybe an expert or knows more about that in their field than you do?
So that's kind of like the best part about having a co-host on the podcast is Amanda and I, we take turns, and then if we're like run into like a wall, like what else should we be asking? Then we'll like ask the other person, but we kind of just take turns creating the questions. And then, so it's like a little refreshing that we don't have to, or I don't personally have to write all the questions for every single episode, that she'll come in with a set of questions and we'll just share it on a Google Doc or add to it, or it's working out. We're pretty good so far.
What guests have you had on the show? And how many episodes are you guys in so far?
I want to say we've done 12 episodes so far. We've had Carrie Carter on the show. We've talked about burnout with her. Bethany Montoya, we discussed dental office culture. We have had a classmate of mine. Her name was Savannah Sims. She actually left hygiene to go do real estate. So we talked to her about how she transitioned out of dentistry. Our platform, we want to use it too to also support other hygienists that are starting their own hygiene business in a sense. So we've had, I want to say, a Julie Looker on. She's starting Hygiene Glow apparel company. And we just, gosh, who else have I had on? The Dental Diamond coaches. We've had them on. Bloom RDH has been on. I'm sure I'm missing a couple, but actually we had Dr. Jen, who makes her own nanohydroxyapatite toothpaste on. And Amanda and I, like, our minds were blown. Like, we're like, I can't believe our first dentist was a female dentist. We thought that was pretty cool. We've also had Dr. Wagner, who works with Amanda. He just graduated from dental school on, and we just talked to him about his transition from school to like actual practice. So this podcast is really just like flowing and going wherever it wants. I think Amanda and I, like, we put in all the work and we make it happen, but I don't think we would call this podcast our own. Like, this is the hygienist podcast. Like, this is for hygienists. And we actually just had a booth at the Utah Dental Hygiene Association convention, and
Hmm.
they had probably 400 attendees. We got feedback from like 200 plus on what they would want to hear about on the show.
Wow.
So, like, we have this whole stack of ideas now. So, we're just putting out their content that hygienists want to hear.
I love it. So, okay, let's look in the future. So, I don't know if you know this stat, but there's, the burnout or pod fade is what they call it, is after 7 episodes. You guys have already like almost doubled what a lot of people like the quitting point for a lot of people. So, what is the future for you all? You have this list of all these great guests and topics that you want to have on. Is this a weekly episode and you're going to spend the next 200 episodes going through this list?
We try to get in as much as we can. Our goal would be weekly, but it's just a little challenging because we both still practice in the clinic.
Hmm.
Traveling. So we do our best. But that would be like the ultimate goal is to like have like an episode going out like every weekend for the hygienists. But yeah, that's pretty much our plan is to go through that list of ideas and find a guest to come on and make it happen. So most of our podcasts happen like late at night after everyone's home from clinic.
I feel like for me personally, I kind of zero into like, okay, this is what I love. Whether someone likes perio, I'm a restorative hygienist. I love restorative. I love business. I love this particular thing. Would you say that you have a skill set that you really, really love, and Amanda has a skill set that she really, really loves, or you guys have a very kind of similar overlapping kind of passion of a subset of hygiene?
No, we are complete opposites. I am definitely more business and numbers and data driven, and
Yes,
she
yes.
is like coming from community health standpoint. So our ideas like marry together so perfectly. Like whatever one of us is missing, the other one has.
Which is so helpful. I tell you what, it's so helpful. Well, I'm really excited. I think a lot of the listeners are going to be really excited because, like I said, there's so many really good takes on hygiene that you can't listen to one podcast. You have to listen to all the hygiene podcasts to be a well rounded clinician. How can they find you? How can they find their podcast? How can they reach out to you? All of those things.
Yes, so our podcast is on Spotify. I also post them to my YouTube channel, and then we're on Instagram. That one's kind of my favorite. You can get Hygiene Elevated on Instagram. Send us a message, and we're open to pretty much anyone coming on the show if there's something they want to talk about.
Well, awesome. And then for our listeners, I'll put all those links in the show notes. Well, thank you very much, Joffrey, for being on.
Thank you for having me.
A tale of two hygienists.